USA! We are so excited to be here. Team Trump is on the ground in Florida. And we are going to fight to keep the state of Florida. We have a great show for you today. We're going to talk about the accomplishments. We're going to talk about the Democrats. And we're going to talk about all of the people who love President Trump because President Trump loves the American people. Right now we have former Communications Director, Strategic Director of the White House, and current Senior Advisor to Trump 2020, Mercedes Schlapp. Right here we have Senator Manny Diaz. And Women for Trump co-chair, Dr. Gina Loudon. Florida is representing today, so I thought we would talk about one of the things that the media doesn't want to talk about, guys, and that is President Trump's accomplishments. You know, there's really no way to avoid it, but they do. The media really does somehow gloss over all of these amazing achievements that our president has accomplished for our country, and not even just our country, but the world. I mean, his presence on this national platform has truly changed for generations to come. Mercedes, you were there. You've worked with the president. What was your experience like seeing him in action? Because you actually worked in the Bush administration.
That's right. Well, let me just start by saying, Katrina, with President Trump, we are winning. America is strong again. America is great again. And it's why we need President Trump to be our next president come 2020. I will tell you, I had the great honor now of working for two presidents, although I look very young. And I have to say, President Trump is the best president to ever work for. He listens to the American people. And you know what he is? He's a results-oriented president. He went to Washington and realized that there is a lot of these politicians that don't get anything done. So when he said, we're going to drain the swamp, you know what he did, Katrina? He's draining the swamp. He told these Democrats, we are going to get stuff done. And you know what the Democrats do? Nothing. So we now have the strongest economy that we've ever seen. And that's because of President Trump. We now have the strongest military we've ever seen. And that's because of President Trump. And we are in a stronger position in the eyes of the world because of President Trump.
I mean, it's all due to President Trump. And we see people who want to take credit for all of the work that he's done. But I mean, he's really done it, and he's done it, a lot of it on his own, through his own gut instincts, through his passion and his drive and his will to serve his country. And he's done an amazing job. And that's why all these people are here today. You know, we talk about some of the accomplishments that the president has had for America. Let's talk about Florida. Senator Diaz, how has President Trump affected Florida?
So let's start off by welcoming President Trump as a permanent resident of Florida, and that's why we're homecoming here today. We're so proud to have President Trump as a permanent resident, and the incredible accomplishments include a 3.2 unemployment rate in Florida now, a record low since 2006, and that's due to the policies of President Trump. He knows that removing regulations, he knows that allowing the American people to get their money back in their pocket for they to spend it best, not the government, improves. And that includes 600,000 new jobs in the state of Florida over the last 2 years. And all of that is due to the hard work of President Trump. He is a doer, not a talker. He's a doer. And the Democrats, all they know how to do is try to throw roadblocks in his way, try to, this farce of an impeachment, they don't accomplish what they need to do, which is Nancy Pelosi is holding up the trade agreement. He promised that he would get rid of NAFTA and he would put in a new trade agreement. It's there, but yet Congress sits on their hands. So President Trump has done incredible work for Florida, for the entire country, but especially here, and we're proud to have him as a permanent resident.
Right. The do-nothing Democrats. So we have the fake news media and the do-nothing Democrats.
Which they hate us, Katrina.
They do.
Hate
They
the
absolutely
president.
hate us. They hate
And
him,
they
and
hate
us,
the
everybody.
people, the Trump supporters.
That's right.
They call us a cult, for crying out loud. That's outrageous.
We are a cult. We are a cult of patriots. We'll take that all day. Dr. Gina, the media wants to tell everyone that women don't support Trump. How many women are out there? The Democrats will tell you the president's policies have been bad for women. What do you say to that?
Well, there are a lot of women out there, but this is an interesting thing. Anecdotally, whenever I ask men how they got on board the Trump train, I always find it interesting, Katrina. 9 times out of 10, you men out there, you tell me right now, was it you or your wife or significant other that got you on board the Trump train? A lot of times it was their wife that got them on board the Trump train first. And so I hear that all the time. So I think women, how insulting is it, first of all, for them to say, for the Democrats to say that women aren't capable of making up their own minds? I think it says a lot, honestly, about where they put women in their minds if they don't think women can make up their own minds. You look at what this president, he has been the quintessential women's president. Out of the 6.9 million jobs he's created, more than half of those have been for women, and that's no surprise. This president has been creating jobs for women his whole entire life. So this is no surprise to those of us who looked at his track record and said, this is going to be a great president for women. But I think one of the little known facts that we don't hear a whole lot about is that he has pulled 1.5 million women out of poverty. That's a real life changer. For those women, their lives will never be the same. Their children's lives will never be the same. And we know about doubling the child tax credit to more than $2,000 per child. But also, I think one other thing that is really noteworthy is how many men have been enabled and empowered to stay home with their families now. As we see these manufacturing jobs under this president, men love to work with their hands. And one of the points that I haven't seen made a lot in media, because sometimes we just don't have time in talking points, right, in sound bites on media, to say these things. But do any of you men work with your hands? You like to work with your hands? And you have a job now under this president that you didn't have before? And how does that make you feel? And what does that do to a family? And what does that do to a father? And what does that make of a husband? And how does that improve the quality of life for women in our country? So I think the things that women used to worry about at night from an economic standpoint, I used to lay in bed at night and I used to worry about terror. Remember that? Do you remember going to sleep worrying about terrorists? I don't think about that anymore when I go to bed at night. The president has eradicated a lot of worries, he's fixed a lot of our worries, and he has minimized a lot of the things that we worried about as Americans. And I think when we take note of those things, women have an amazing president in President Trump.
That's right. I think a lot of people slept better the evening, or I guess the morning, of the 2016 election. I know I did, and several people set their alarms to just see Matt Lauer's face that morning. And, everything has just gone up in our country ever since. And, when you hear people say things like there are more jobs open than people looking, that is a huge accomplishment, and most people can't even grasp just how big that is. You used to be able to poll your Uber drivers, and they would say, well, I'm doing this because I lost my job or I needed a second income. And now I poll my Uber drivers, and they're saying, I'm just doing this on the side because I got this really great job. So the whole conversation has turned around since President Trump has been elected. And Mercedes, Gina's talked about women. We've talked about the accomplishments in the White House. But when you look at his domestic accomplishments, he's also had some really huge wins on foreign policy. What can you share about that?
Well, first of all, I just want to point out a couple of spectacular women. Let's just say our beautiful First Lady, Melania Trump, which the fashion magazines refuse to cover. Hello?
Boo.
Then you've got Ivanka Trump, who, talking about some foreign policy accomplishments, has been working on global women development in other countries. It's been a remarkable program where we've been investing abroad as much as we're investing here in the United States. And then Laura Trump, who is part of our campaign, and we're so thrilled to have her as well. So these are just remarkable women on the campaign. It's definitely a family affair. But what we have seen is, yes, because we are a strong economy, the strongest that we've been, the booming Trump economy, you look at the rest of the world, and they're looking at us as a beacon of hope. You look at the chaos that's happening in Hong Kong, where they're fighting against these Chinese communists. And you know what these Hong Kong protesters say? They say that thank God for President Trump, because President Trump is willing to be tough on China. So what do we have? President Trump talking to President Xi and saying, look, y'all have stolen our intellectual property, you have stolen our technology, and we're not going to put up with it anymore. We want better trade deals. And if anyone understands the art of the deal, it's President Trump. He's also been able to stabilize the Korean Peninsula. We know that there's been issues with the dictator in North Korea, and he's working hard to ensure that we have a stable region. That's very important. And we obviously work very closely with the Israeli government. He took the embassy and moved it to Jerusalem, something that no other president, although they promised it, said no.
All talk and no action. That's what you get from these career politicians whose only ambition is power. Dr. Gina, take 1 minute and talk about those accomplishments, leading on moving the embassy to Jerusalem. Religious freedom is so important in our country. Take a minute and talk about that.
So important, Katrina. You know, if we would, God forbid, fall back into the hands of the Democrats, I shudder to think what would happen to our great state of Florida. I moved here from California, where socialists are shutting down that country. They are bankrupting it. You already feel the perils of socialism living there. I did, and that's why I moved here. And I love that the president is choosing the great state of Florida for the reasons he feels the same socialist policies shutting down things in New York, just like I felt in California. It is very real. And I was in Israel just last year, and everyone there, even the more left-leaning journalists that I was traveling with, would say, tell the president thank you so much for what he has done restoring the capital in Israel, because they understand, even left-leaning people in Israel understand the importance of religious freedom and the importance of our First Amendment. And so if we don't maintain that, I will tell you something, Katrina, and you know this, they don't, the left does not understand the importance of our First Amendment and our free speech and religious freedom. We have to keep it. Our president understands this issue through and through, and there is nothing he is more committed to, and he has demonstrated that throughout his presidency, and we can count on him for that.
Well, so that brings us to the next point. Florida is extremely important. If we want to maintain this avenue of success with President Trump, what is your message, Senator Diaz, to Floridians who are still on the fence?
The proof is in the pudding. Our president's a man of action. We need you to come out and vote. No complacency just because we won Florida in 2016. This president needs you now in 2020 to maintain Florida great and to keep America great.
Thank you,
Bring
panel,
your
for our
friends.
discussion. Today, we are here in Sunrise, Florida for the president's homecoming rally. We are so excited to be here. It is Thanksgiving week, and who better to spend your Thanksgiving week than with patriots? People who love America, people who love our president, and people who cannot wait to vote in 2020. You know, one of the other things that we like to do when we're out at these rallies is talk to people in the states. We have events going on all over Florida right now. You'll get to hear about some of that later on today. And people are just engaged. One of the reasons we started so early is because there were so many people asking us, how do I get involved? How do I help the president get reelected? And this was 2 years ago. So it's very exciting now that we're able to change those gears and get into campaign mode. And, you know, Brad Parscale, our campaign manager, has put together this amazing machine and has brought some amazing people on board to help get President Trump reelected. Our next topic is going to be the economy specifically. And the reason we're going to be talking about the economy is because the media won't. And if you watched any of the Democrat debate last week, they didn't talk about it either. So we have to ask ourselves, why aren't the Democrats talking about the economy? I think it's a really great question. Back with us on the panel is Mercedes Schlapp. We now have the Florida CFO, Jimmy Patronis, and Women for Trump co-chair, Katrina Campins.
Thanks for having us.
Mercy, with you real quick. We've got to talk about the Democrat debate last week. What were your thoughts?
It was a sleeper. Like, did anyone really watch it? I mean, come on. They don't want to talk about the economy because they would lose on the economy. They want to raise middle-class taxes. That means they'll take away your money. And that means that will hurt our economy. They are more focused on adding regulations, on making sure they have these pipe dreams, Green New Deals costing trillions of dollars. And the only way they can do this and pay for Medicare for all is increase your taxes. And that would have a devastating effect on our economy.
And it would eliminate private health insurance.
That's right.
No, that's a non-starter for many Americans. Katrina, I want to go to you. You were around in 2016, did some press for the president. You're right here in Florida. But the media won't acknowledge his accomplishments at any level. So what would you have to say to our audience when it comes to the president's accomplishments on the economy?
Well, first and foremost, I've known President Trump since 2004, since I appeared on the first season of The Apprentice, and he never loses. He didn't lose then, and he's not losing now. He is a man that stands behind what he says he's going to do, and he has revitalized the American economy, and he has brought jobs back. Unemployment rate is at an all-time low, and let's talk about women for a second, because we actually campaigned all around the nation when they said that women didn't stand with Trump. And yet he has been the president that has done the most for women. And bringing women into the economy and with their low unemployment rate actually increases productivity. And when productivity increases, wages increase, which then helps the stability and economic growth of nations. It's not a feminist comment whatsoever. It's actually because men and women share different skill sets and they complement each other very well. What he has done for Latinos, I'm a first-generation Cuban American, born and raised here in Miami, Florida. And I am so proud to be an American because I experienced what my parents went through and they worked hard, which is why I'm also completely against any socialist or communist talk whatsoever. So he has done more for the U.S. economy, and he continues to stand for the people, which is why he's going to win in 2020.
Well, I think you're right. And the for the people is really what's been the key. You know, we talked about the career politicians and how they're all talking no action. President Trump shows up and says, I'm for you. And then he gets elected and proves it, which really raises the bar for politicians who precede Trump. So we've talked about the national accomplishments. We've talked about some foreign policy. But as the CFO, Jimmy, right here in Florida, how has President Trump impacted the state?
So I'll look at it, just what we've had in the state of Florida since he's taken office. Over 600,000 new jobs have been created in the state. Now, I know that the mainstream media is not reporting the economic successes that he's had, but you know who's reporting it? Is the people that are moving to the state of Florida by the thousands every single week. They move from high tax states to low tax states organically. They finally get fed up. They get fed up with overgrowing government, overreaching government. If you just look at the fights that are taking place right now over negotiations in China, You know, I was pulling up some numbers. China, just in 2017, $3.7 trillion in manufacturing took place in China. With President Trump's negotiations, even if he moved half of a 1% to a Vietnam or another country, just moved it, that's like moving a Ford Motor Company to a whole other country. So every time he puts up those fights, he's not doing it for himself. He's doing it for us. He's doing it for our kids. He's doing it for stabilizing our world economy. So, you know, what he's doing, he can't do enough of. And my God, all I think about is all these great people have retirement accounts. Heaven forbid, if anything changes, what happens to the wealth of these hardworking citizens on behalf of the state of Florida. So, you know, what that rock star is doing every single day selflessly, I'm a beneficiary of, and so are my kids.
Amen to that. You know, President Trump has truly been an anomaly, which has really thrown a monkey wrench into a lot of these politicians and their consultants' lifestyles. But we, as the American people, are so grateful and thankful for that. And, you know, we've talked about a little bit of the trade policy with China, which, you know, if you haven't read The Art of the Deal, highly suggest it. Because do you remember when Barack Obama said, oh, we'll never bring back manufacturing jobs. You'll need a magic wand. Well, you know what we say? We say abracadabra, baby. 600,000 jobs right here in Florida. You have record low unemployment for African Americans, for Latinos in our country. I mean, every single number across the board. This president has overachieved at this level. This is his first term. Imagine what he could do with another 4 years. That's why we are here today. Katrina. That's right. 4 more years. Katrina, you knew President Trump long before he was a candidate. Let's talk about The Apprentice for a second, because, you know, when I was spokesperson for 2016, the question that I would get from every single pundit was, if Donald Trump gets elected, is he going to act more presidential? Right? And I kept thinking, like, what does that even mean? I mean, if you've read any historical book on any previous president, Donald Trump is the greatest president of our lifetime.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I would always say, Donald Trump, the candidate, is going to be Donald Trump, the president, and then they're shocked because he's still Donald Trump. What do you think about that?
Well, I think the reason that the American people love him is because they know that he has no filter. He's not politically correct, which we don't care about. We want things to get done. We don't want people to be politically correct. And he is a businessman who is turning this country into the best country for the people, right? And we got that question all the time as well. Oh, is this going to turn into a reality show? No, it's not going to turn into a reality show.
It's the best reality show ever.
Well, actually, it is, isn't it? I was just telling my mom on the way over here, like, life has come full circle. You know, I did The Apprentice in 2004, and it was surreal. It was the roller coaster ride of my lifetime, I thought, right? And then here we are, and he is standing for the American people, and he's going to go down as the best president in history. He will, and he's going to win, and he's going to win by a landslide. And we're going to see some amazing changes moving forward, and we're going to continue to see the U.S. economy doing well. And he's more presidential than any president we've had.
You know, I tend to agree with you because, I mean, when I look back at previous presidents, I mean, it was always lip service. It was always niceties, and we're going to pat you on your head and tell you what's best for you. And Donald Trump comes out and says, Americans know what's best for them. They know what's best for their families. Let's just give them the options, and we have to level the playing field. Get rid of the protected political class and allow the Americans to achieve the prosperity that I've achieved in his case. And you would see so many people, whether it be on the construction site or in the kitchens of the hotels we were having events in, they said, he's just like me. And that is so important. And that's how he was able to connect. And Mercedes, let's talk about the impact that this has had with regards to the economy, specifically with construction jobs. We now know the Democrats are holding up a lot of legislation. What could we be doing if the Democrats would just get in there and do their jobs?
It starts with getting this trade deal passed, the USMCA. And I will tell you, I was in the White House when they've been negotiating this deal. They brought in the Democrats in. They've been able to negotiate on this trade agreement. But Nancy Pelosi refuses to move it forward. So what she's doing is Nancy is basically negatively impacting our workers in key states, including Florida, because they can't get this trade deal done, despite the fact that we've been working on this together for almost 2 years. And you know what's so nasty about Nancy? What's so nasty is she goes out to in the chambers of the House of Representatives, basically criticizes the president, goes after him on impeachment. She gets invited to the White House to get infrastructure done, and the president's like, no way, you go and insult me, and then you want me to come and work with you? That's just unacceptable. And that's why I love this president, because this president is very transparent. He wants to get the deal done, but he wants to have people who are going to be fair players. And those Democrats are not fair players.
No, you're absolutely right. Not only are they not fair, but they're liars, they're manipulators, they're deceiving, and they are massively abusing their power. And that's really what's holding up a lot of these policies that could impact the state of Florida. Jimmy, what do you say to Floridians who are on the fence about Donald Trump?
I say, look at your job security. Right now in the state of Florida, there's more wealth being created by individuals that are making investments. They're expanding their business. Look, I tell people all the time, I love to see people make money, because when they make money, they grow their business. When they grow their business, they're hiring people. When they're hiring people, they're fighting for workers. And you look at the empowerment that takes place. People will then take care of their families. They will grow their opportunities. The consumer confidence that he's provided the state of Florida has been just a massive shot of adrenaline to our economy. Florida just passed the mark. We're a trillion dollar economy. And if you look at just one little fact comparing us to New York, New York's got fewer people than the state of Florida, but the health care budget of New York is bigger than the entire budget of the state of Florida. Florida does more with less because we work hard and work together and we keep a low tax environment. And the president sees that. The president understands logistics. He understands how to leverage that advantage. And I appreciate somebody who wants to get us a good deal. And that's what he does every single day. He finds the best deal for everyday Americans.
Getting a good deal. Well, that's what it's all about. That's what the president promised to deliver to Americans. He wanted to go out there and give Americans a better deal, because the politicians before him were just stupid.
Amen.
Am I right? And it's really sad, because he has really, lifted the veil on what these politicians have been lying to us about this whole time. They said we couldn't do this, we couldn't do that, we couldn't bring back manufacturing. There's a lot of things that they said we could not do. President Trump has done in his first term. And I think that's why you see the poll numbers, Mercedes, continue to go up. That's why you see more women, Katrina, who are continuing to support President Trump, because they see
Smart
these
women.
economic
Very
numbers.
smart women.
Very smart women.
And don't forget the silent voter.
Yes,
The one that goes
the
up to
secret ones.
you, at the water, in the little station saying, I support President Trump. But you know what? We're not going to be quiet. We're going to speak up and say that we support President Trump. Don't ever be silenced by these Democrats. Don't ever be silenced by the left, because that is their scare tactic. And we will not be quiet. We will stand strong and proud.
And we will fight. Because that's what this is, folks. We are fighting for the American people. President Trump is fighting for your future, for our families. And I want to say thank you to our panel. We very much appreciate you being here with us for President Trump's homecoming rally.
Go Trump.
What an amazing day this is. When we were just talking about 2016, it brought back so many memories that we had early on in the primary, when everyone said that this was just a publicity stunt. No one could see what many of us saw in President Trump's eyes, or at that time, candidate Trump's eyes. He was committed and he was dedicated to getting out there, and he wanted to campaign all over this country. There were times when he wanted to go out to California and had to go to Michigan. There were times that he wanted to go everywhere. He ran us ragged all across this country, sometimes 3 states in a day, because he is committed to working hard, and he was committed to going out and campaigning for every single vote. And he did that, and he did it well. And that's why we saw a historic electoral college landslide for President Trump. And I got a feeling we might actually see that again. What do you think? Let's add to that. And you know who else thinks that there's going to be an electoral college landslide? The Democrats. That's why they're trying to stop President Trump with all of these hoaxes, all of these phony, fake narratives. And we went from the Russia hoax, this collusion that never existed. Now we're on to impeachment. This ridiculous insanity that's going on in the House. Joining us on this panel, we are now joined by Communications Director Tim Murtaugh and Congressman Walz.
How you doing?
Happy to be here.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
Sure.
Look, this is interesting, but I have to start with the congressman. Because the people want to know what happened that day when you stormed the skiff. What happened?
Well, so first of all, I'm a Green Beret. I'm a special operator. I've been in combat all over the world, from West Africa to Afghanistan, and now I'm in combat in the swamp. And I don't know which is tougher. At least the Taliban, you could see which way they were shooting from, and that's not always the case in politics. So we stormed the skiff. I have been asking for over a month, formally, informally, and in person, requesting Adam Schiff give me, a sitting member of Congress that represents almost 1 million Americans in Northeast Florida, access to the transcripts. I'm an elected member of Congress. His constituents aren't any more important or less important than mine. And so I got frustrated. I got tired of it. I joined my wingman, Matt Gaetz, and others. And we walked into the skiff and said, enough is enough. We walked into the bunker, which is in the basement of the Capitol. And guess what? First of all, it's a tiny room where you can barely allow, barely more than a dozen members in there. The other thing is they start every single hearing with the classification level, whether it's top secret, secret, confidential, or unclassified. This won't surprise you. Every single hearing they've had in there was unclassified. There's no reason to be in that skiff. Nothing in there being discussed is classified. And the reason he leaves it unclassified is so that he can leak whatever he wants out to the media to drive the narrative, drive public opinion, and try to rig the system against the president. And we said enough is enough, and at least for that day, Schiff couldn't have his hearings and couldn't rig the system. And we're just going to keep fighting. We're going to keep fighting what is absolutely a very serious thing that's laid out in our Constitution, and that Pelosi and Schiff are trying to rig the rules and rig the system against the president.
Which it's truly amazing to see how they're doing this with changing the rules and doing all these things in secret and blocking you guys from seeing this information. It's like, who are they representing if not themselves at this point? So I don't know, Mercedes. I mean, you've worked under the Bush administration. You've been in politics for a while. You've been in the swamp for a while. But the president has designated this presidential harassment, and that is exactly what this is. How have things changed over time in your experience?
Well, first of all, I'm a hometown Miami girl. Let's start from there. And I'm a Golden Panther, too. So my heart is still in Florida, despite the fact that we've been in Washington for some time. And I will tell you, in these past decades, I have never seen a president be harassed like President Trump. Not only by the Democrats, but by the liberal fake media. Okay? We were in the White House in the West Wing when these liberal media outlets would come in, these reporters, so-called journalists, to say, we have this source. And we're going to go with what the source says. All right, Katrina, I was in the room in certain of these meetings, and it was totally not what the source would say, but they wouldn't take our word for it. They wanted to make sure they got the source who was going to go after this president. That is not journalism. So I think that what we have seen with this president is this ongoing abuse by the Democrats because they will never accept the election results of 2016. And I think that's been incredibly problematic for the most part. But what I love about President Trump is that he fights them tooth and nail, and he has taught the Republicans in Congress to fight even harder. It's the first time I've actually seen the Republicans stand up strong and fight against this political sham of impeachment.
I mean, I think that point, Mercedes, is what actually may save the Republic, because he has been able to lead this charge in standing up against the Democrats and standing up against the media, which is something Republicans just didn't do. And I think it's truly unfortunate because now he has to carry that baggage of all of the isms, the racism, the sexism, any ism you can think of.
And we carry it.
And we carry it because Republicans never fought back before. And so now we have somebody that's willing to take on that fight. And I love it. It energizes me. Every day I wake up and President Trump is the president. I know we're going to win somewhere, someday. We're winning every day with President Trump. Tim, you see all the coverage. You see the fake news media.
I do.
You know, is it bribery? Is it corruption? Is it whatever it is today, right? Is this going to backfire? This impeachment narrative is so ridiculous because there's an election in a year. Why continue down this path of impeachment?
I don't think you've seen the Democrats even try, because I don't think you can accurately make a case for why they want to take the decision on who the next president is going to be out of the hands of the voters. They want to say, no, we need to make that decision. And I think you're exactly right, Katrina. This is already starting to backfire on Democrats. We're seeing it in the public polling. We know it internally, but we see it in public polling now, especially among independent voters. They're completely turned off by this. You know, Adam Schiff and the Democrats, they, just like they did with the Mueller report, they way overpromised. And they said with the Mueller report, wait till you see the Mueller report, it's going to be devastating. And then it came out and there was nothing in there. And they've done it again. And so millions of Americans tuned in for the last 2 weeks of these impeachment hearings, and they saw the things on TV and they said, is that it? This is what they've been yapping about the whole time? They've got nothing at all on the president. And you see the polling absolutely just flip. And independents are against it. This is an utter waste of taxpayer resources and the time of the Congress. And Congress should be doing things like passing the USMCA. And you know why? Nancy Pelosi will not bring the USMCA trade deal to a vote on the floor of the House of Representatives because it will pass. Think about that. She won't bring it forward for a vote because she knows it has the votes to pass. That's disgraceful. This is the Speaker of the House of Representatives not doing something that would be good for this country because she perceives it to be a political victory for the president, which is astoundingly cynical. It's terrible politics. I think the Democrats are starting to feel some buyer's remorse, and they're all the way down this impeachment road, and now they don't know what to do. They're like the dog who caught the car, right? Finally caught the car, and now they've got the votes to impeach the president, and I think they suddenly realize this is not what America wants. And I think we'll find out that this will have turned out to be the worst political calculation in American history, what the Democrats have done.
You know, I think you're right. The calculation was horrible, but I think they've always known they couldn't impeach the president, but they're doing it anyway. And I think that's where this little, cognitive dissonance is coming from with the American people as they've seen this story unfold, per se, on TV. I mean, they're more upset that soap operas have been interrupted throughout the day for this nonsense. Right. But to your point, we see, a congresswoman in Michigan in a very heavily blue district come out and say, yeah, I don't think we should do this. Congressman, what do you think is going on there?
Well, first of all, Mercedes, I want to welcome you back to Florida.
Oh, thank you.
You can move on back. The president has moved back.
You can't have her yet.
Yep. Come on.
Let's win Florida first.
1,000
How
people
about
a day
that?
are coming,
One more
coming
vote
to
in Florida.
We'll
Why
welcome
not?
you. And to your point, Democratic Representative Al Green said months ago that if we don't impeach him, we're afraid he'll win. And that's, this has been to the agenda of the left from the get-go. And what you cannot underestimate, because I see it every day in the House of Representatives, is that Nancy Pelosi is totally beholden to the left. We have a situation now where Nancy Pelosi looks moderate compared to her left. One of the most liberal members of the House of Representatives from San Francisco now looks moderate compared to her left. And she only won her speakership by 2 votes. She barely won it. She's totally beholden. So I knew once a majority of the Democrats, before this Ukraine whistleblower stuff even came out, when the majority of the Democrats said that they wanted to go to impeachment just because they would find a reason, that they were going to drag her down this road. She knows it's bad politics for them. She knows that the American people expect us to get something done, that they want better roads, they want infrastructure, they want immigration reform, they want lower prescription drugs, they want health care reform because Obamacare has failed completely. And here's the thing, as a veteran, that just drives me up the wall. Right now, as we speak, we do not have a defense bill for the first time in 58 years. So our men and women in uniform that are out on that wall right now as we speak aren't getting the new equipment, the new ships, the new planes, the new investments in research and development that they deserve. Why? Because we have 6 committees completely obsessed with impeachment. And that is truly a shame. The veterans that are out on that wall, the veterans that didn't come back, are fallen. They deserve better. They deserve better than this, and I think the Democrats are going to hear that from the American people loud and clear.
Absolutely. If they continue down this process, and I know there's a little talk about it maybe not going down the impeachment process. Maybe they'll do a censorship instead. But real quickly, take about 30 seconds each. Do you think the Democrats will be successful, or will it backfire? Mercedes?
Complete backfire. Those moderate Democrats in those Trump districts got to be very, very nervous.
Tim?
It's an absolute backfire, and it's going to cost them their majority in the House. The president is going to be reelected, and we're going to win back the House of Representatives.
Congressman?
I'm in the backfire camp, but I think it's really, if they do it and it goes over to the Senate, and then you have 4 Democratic senators that are running for president sitting as a jury. You have all of the dirt being drug out by Biden. And you have all of this happening as voters are going to the polls in Iowa and New Hampshire going, what in the heck are you guys doing up there? We, the people, decide, not Pelosi and Schiff and a few of those Democratic senators. And then I think that's really where they're going to regret doing this.
Yeah, I think you're right. And, I have liberal friends, as many of us do, the ones that we have left, who have all said they don't agree with this either. And that's usually a really good litmus test, the people who aren't watching politics every day, who aren't watching all the mainstream media. 5 seconds. If this goes to the Senate, who do you want to see subpoenaed by the Senate? Mercedes?
Schiff.
Tim?
I agree with Schiff, but also Hunter Biden.
Hunter Biden, okay. Congressman?
I want to see the DNC operatives that were working with Ukraine and others to interfere.
Yeah, okay.
I want to get to the bottom of that, and I want to get to the bottom of how Hunter received over $1 billion from the Central Bank of China into his hedge fund. There is a lot to uncover there.
Yeah, there's a lot to uncover there. And, the president has tweeted that he would welcome the Senate investigation. And I don't know, maybe everyone should tweet #45Fest and let us know who you think should be subpoenaed. Thank you, panel, for our impeachment discussion.
Thank you.
This has really been, one of the moments in our lifetimes that I don't think any of us will ever forget. It doesn't matter if you're affiliated with a political party. It doesn't matter if you're involved in politics. The only thing that really matters is that the American people know that their duly elected sitting president has been under attack since he even had his inauguration. And it's truly unacceptable because It could be any of us at any time. We see these bureaucrats abusing their power. We've seen private citizens targeted. And a lot of that should come out soon. But we should all be concerned as Americans, regardless of our political affiliation, what's happening in Washington, D.C., because that could very well be at a state near you. Joining our panel right now, we are very excited to welcome our senior advisor, Mr. John Pence, and Lieutenant Governor Jeanette Nunez. Welcome to our panel. Now I'd like to talk about socialism. Yeah, it seems the Democrats have decided that capitalism, nah, we're not interested in success. We're not interested in providing for our families. We're just not interested in parenting anymore or making our community strong. They truly believe that the government is the end-all, be-all for society. Now, I know the folks here don't agree with that. But let's start with you, Lieutenant Governor, because you have a family story. I would like for you to share that with our audience.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with you all. I'll tell you, as the daughter of Cuban immigrants that came to this country in search of freedom, no community in this country understands the ills of socialism better than South Florida. And that's why we're fighting the good fight, and we will not allow the left to dictate what they want to impose upon us. The ills of socialism, all they bring are repressed freedoms and trampled citizens. And we're not going to stand for that. And that's why I'm so proud that we have a president that fights day in and day out against socialism.
Amen to that. Mercedes, we just marked the 3rd anniversary of the death of Fidel Castro, the communist dictator of Cuba.
Boo!
Boo! Once that occurred and you think back to socialism, right? We have dictators. What is your message to America about socialism?
Socialism sucks. And that's the message. Why? Because it takes away your God-given fundamental rights. And I have to say, also, my parents being Cuban, my father, who served as a political prisoner in Cuba under Fidel Castro, he lost everything. And you know why he loves America? Because America stands for freedom. It stands for democracy. And it's why we need to ensure that the left stops pushing these socialist policies that will destroy America.
I mean, I don't understand where this idea comes from of wanting the government. I mean, the government can't run anything correctly. So I've never understood it myself, but we have a ton of millennials out there who for some reason have been, I don't know, indoctrinated into this concept. For some reason, they've been convinced that it sort of levels the playing field. It does just the opposite. It creates a larger gap between the haves and the have-nots. I don't understand. So John, you are very much a person I wanted to talk to on this topic because you talk a lot about Venezuela. You're very active on social media. And, you know, we're talking about a country who was one of the richest in Latin America. And now people are starving. What is happening?
It's true. I'll speak to the millennials online. We're going to push out these clips. This is what freedom looks like right behind us. The will of the people get to gather peacefully. They go to rallies. They go see our President Trump, Vice President Pence. And why? Because they love our democracy. They love our freedom. We know that nothing is free. Yet, Democrats running for president right now are offering everything and anything to young voters. Free college, free health care for anyone that steps foot in this country. We have to think about what those socialist policies have done in places like Venezuela, Cuba. And as the Lieutenant Governor mentioned, people in southern Florida know better than anyone that socialism is repressive, it's destructive, and we can never let America be a socialist country.
In the words of President Trump, it will never happen as long as he's around. So, you know, that's even more of a reason to make sure we do our job and get out there and get the president reelected. But Mercedes, to me, it almost seems like there's an anti-human component to socialism. And human beings are designed to be productive. They're designed to care for their families. And what we've seen is when you see a little piece of it, whether it's regard to the welfare system or any other system that relies on the government, you see the spirit of people sort of diminished and their inability to do the things that they know they should be able to do, and they're completely disempowered. What do you think our fight is going to be moving into 2020?
Well, and people are designed to be free. Freedom of speech, freedom to worship. And what you find with socialism is that it is a failed experiment time and time again. It is about power grabbing for the government. It is why you see Venezuela, once a prosperous country, a prosperous Latin American country, in just a few decades fall into disarray and famine and oppression of the Venezuelan people. And you know who's helping them? The Cuban military. And it is just a dark place to go because the human spirit is meant to be free. And that is the fight that we have of our lifetime. Our lifetime is to ensure that socialism and government does not take over our God-given rights and our God-given freedoms. And the thing is it can happen quickly. You look at Hong Kong and those protesters, those young protesters, you know what they're reciting? They're reciting our founding fathers. They're the ones that wave the American flag because they know in 28 years or less, they will lose their freedom to Chinese communists. And they know that they won't be having the freedom of speech. They are going to want to shut down their freedom to speak up. And the left does that to us all the time. They want us to be quiet. They don't want us to speak up. And that is why it is the fight of our lifetime. And it is why President Trump needs to win in 2020.
You know, it gives you chills when you think about what's happening in Hong Kong. You know, they're holding up American flags. They're holding up pictures of President Trump. And you have Democrats in our own country who demonize our president at every opportunity that they can. I mean, you could argue that President Trump, that man, is the symbol of freedom of the world right now. And so, you know, we're just excited to be a part of his history-making process. And Lieutenant Governor, here in Florida, you talk to many Floridians, and I'm sure you hear all kinds of views about President Trump and what he's accomplishing, because honestly, if you just watch the news, you really don't know. What is your message to other Floridians?
Well, what I'll say is that, thankfully, last November, we were able to escape a socialist governor from taking over, and Governor Ron DeSantis was able to make sure that that didn't happen here in Florida. And in working with the president and in recognizing the importance of what capitalism means, what freedom means, what liberty means, we want to make sure that Floridians continue to prosper. And that's why we're on the side of President Trump. We want to continue to make inroads. We want to continue to make sure that Florida leads the way in keeping America red. Because as Florida goes, so goes the rest of the nation. So I feel a certain amount of responsibility to make sure we do everything we can from here until next year on election night to keep Florida and the country red.
Yeah, let's give it a hand for Lieutenant Governor. John, take a minute, because there's a lot of people in 2016 who never were involved in politics before. And we heard about it everywhere we went. It didn't matter what state we were in, but they wanted to know how to go and vote for Donald Trump. How do I volunteer? How do I get engaged in all of this? And we have something called the Trump Victory Leadership Initiative. So take just a moment and tell people who are watching online, who are out in the audience, how to get involved to keep America great.
Absolutely. Thanks, Katrina. To get involved, it's easy. Go to donaldjtrump.com, click Get Involved. You'll learn how to become a neighborhood team leader, learn how to register voters, learn how to knock doors. In fact, there's a lot of people running around today registering new voters. They're in awesome red shirts, says voter registration strike force, and you can register right now. You all need to think about this. Think about it online. The rally is just a starting point to get President Trump reelected in 2020. Take the energy that you hear tonight from President Trump, get involved, knock doors, register voters, and let's win big in 2020. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, panel, for joining us today. It looks like the doors are open. So as we see this beautiful sea of red MAGA hats going into the facility, that means President Trump is getting ready to be on his way to Florida. If you want to get involved in the campaign, if you want to continue to get updates, find out when we're coming to a town near you, text Trump to 88022 to join the message, to stay in touch, and we will all see you next time. That's it for 45 Fest. Thank you all for tuning in.